I'm Julie Barkey with this Senate update. With roughly 78 hours remaining in the 2015 legislative session, House and Senate leadership announced they have reached a budget agreement, at least in principle.
Well, we started the morning, the Speaker and I did, by meeting with the Revisor's office at the Capitol to get some feedback from her about the timing the bills need to arrive there in order for them to mechanically process their work and get them back for the legislature to consider on the floor of the House and the Senate. After that meeting this morning, we concluded that we had to figure out how we were going to get this wrapped up today if we were going to finish on time. So we've been working in earnest today on the outstanding budget bill targets, and we are as close as we could possibly be to having an agreement on them. I think in principle, the Speaker and I have agreed. We have staff actually putting the spreadsheets together for us so that we can review those targets, and we really hope to be able to have a sign-off tonight, and then the conference committees will start to work tonight. You probably did notice the Senate today passed a suspension of the joint rule on conference committees so that the conference committees are going to be able to meet all night past 1 o'clock, which what they can do under current rules. We expect the House is going to take that up, and the Senate is certainly hopeful that the House is going to be able to pass that. It does take a 2/3 majority in order to pass that, so that takes a bipartisan vote. I publicly want to thank Senator Han. He had a number of caucus members that voted with the majority today to provide us the opportunity to work through the night on the conference committees tonight and tomorrow night in order to get our business concluded.
Yeah, I would add, it really has been a priority of mine, and I think of Tom as well, to get the work done on time for the folks that sent us here. So we believe that we're close enough to having an agreement that will allow us to do that. It's going to take some breakneck work over the next 3 days to get that done, but we feel like we're there, and we're I think happy about that. We're going to take up that resolution tonight that would allow us to suspend the rules, allowing conference committees to meet a little bit later to get their work done in time, and Representative Thiessen has agreed to put up the votes to pass that in the House as well. So we know it's going to be a lot of work in the next 3 days, but we're eager to get to work, and I think Minnesotans will be happy to hear that we're going to end on time.
Beyond process, talk substance here. What are you doing for the taxpayers of Minnesota?
Well, I think it's a pretty good budget. We have had all of our time focused on the 8 appropriation bills that funds state government. There's going to be significant new money in higher education, K-12, and I think we feel pretty good, and I think the bill is going to reflect the priorities that we share with our caucuses share with Minnesotans.
What about HHS?
The one priority that we had coming in obviously was the long-term care facility reimbursement funding. That will be included in the HHS number. And I don't know how much I can say beyond that, but
that sounds like Minnesota Care is going to be sticking around.
Minnesota Care will be sticking around.
Can you explain? I didn't quite hear. MinCare is staying in the bill. Tell us why this is.
Minnesota Care. Yeah, the question was about Minnesota Care. Obviously, this is a program that we have had concerns about the future of the program, and we've made some concessions that. Obviously, we need to look at the future of this program. The funding source will be gone in 2019. We are going to make a couple of little adjustments and some language. We'll be doing a task force to look at what the future of that program is as part of this tentative agreement.
What about tax cuts? Tax cuts?
Well, we have been focusing on the 8 appropriation bills. We virtually spent no time talking about taxes or about a comprehensive transportation package. That's not to say we're not going to spend some time talking about the next couple of days, but right now the must-pass bills, we hope to be able to have an agreement tonight so that the conference committees can get going on them, and the state budget will be funded for the next 2 years.
Does that mean no transportation and tax cut bill this year? You don't have enough time to do that.
Well, we're not saying that. We're certainly still talking about that, and if we don't get, obviously we need to talk to our chairs and our caucuses about all of the things that we have talked about before we want to get too in depth on what the details of all of this are. So we certainly want to be respectful of those folks. But if we don't get to those issues this year, there will be a significant amount of money left on the bottom line that we can address them in the next session.
How significant?
Significant.
Well, there is going to be significant money left on the bottom line unspent, assuming we don't reach some agreement on taxes and transportation. We really can't give you that number yet because they're putting the spreadsheets together. But it will be a significant amount. There will be enough left on the bottom line to do a pretty significant tax bill and a pretty significant transportation bill if we can find a path to that over the next couple of days.
You expect that means very little. What can you give a ballpark at least?
Significant.
we really hate to give you a number until we've actually reviewed the spreadsheets. But you'll get a number tonight sometime at some point if what we've negotiated holds. We'll have a spreadsheet tonight that the speaker and I will be able to sign off on.
Of the 8 bills you're talking about, what's the holdup? What are the main issues you're still talking about?
Well, I think we're at a point where I think we have a tentative agreement on the 8 bills. The issue is, what do they cost? And so we've had fiscal analysts from both the House and the Senate plugging in the numbers as we've talked through the provisions in the bills. And we just want to make sure at this point the math works. I think there are no longer sticking points on the bills, but there is the issue of a sign off on the final math that it accomplishes what our intent is.
Talk about education and the governor's universal preschool request.
Do you want to take that one?
Let me try. There's a significant spending in E12. The target number will be higher than what the Senate brought into conference, but lower than where the governor was. And the speaker and I made a decision that we're going to let the conferees decide how they want to spend that money. So I can't tell you whether there's going to be 1% on the formula, 1.5% on the formula. There's more than enough money to do 2% on the formula if the conferees decide to do that. We both brought there are other early childhood provisions than just 4-year-olds. There is school readiness, there are scholarships. I think all those things will be under consideration as the conference committee members put their bill together.
But
we tried pretty hard to leave as much flexibility for the conferees to work as they work through their target. But there is not a mandate given to the conferees as to how they spend the $400 million or more that's going to be spent in E12.
Is that true for all conference committees? You're giving them the number and letting them do all the details, or there's some?
I think in some areas there will be some direction given from us, but in most areas we're going to let them sort out the exactly where the money gets spent and a lot of the policy provisions as well.
What are you telling them to do? What are some of the highlights?
Well, we haven't met with them yet, but we're due downtown to do kind of the traditional last Friday night television show, the speaker and I, and then later tonight we'll be meeting, him and I, Senator Cohen and Knobloch and Representative Knobloch, the chairs of Finance and Ways and Means, with the individual committee chairs to jointly give them their targets and give them an opportunity to ask questions of kind of what we expect of them on a timing standpoint so that the bills can get to the floor, and try to address any contingencies that, at some point, the speaker and I are going to give them a time that they have to be done. And if conference committees aren't done, he and I are going to finish the bills because we're going home before midnight on Monday.
Do you believe you've reached an understanding with the governor to where he is going to sign these 8 budget bills based on the deals you've made?
We had a good meeting with the governor after the speaker and I concluded our discussions. He asked for a couple hours to be able to review our work, and I think the only place where the governor might be a little anxious is our K-12 or E-12 number is not going to be as high as he would have liked it. But other than that, I think that's a little lower, but it's still quite a bit of money there. And the other areas, I think we're all probably fairly close to where the governor, I think, would be comfortable.
And is his buffer proposal in here somewhere in the mix?
They are working out some language, and we think that it probably will be, but that's, I think, yet to be determined by the group that's working on the details of that. So I think that just in every bill you're going to find that, and I had been saying this for some time, that compromise and negotiations really everybody has to give up a little something, and everybody's going to get a little something. So I think we came to a place, or are about to come to a place, where everybody's going to be able to say, I got to win in this area or that area. And of course, there are going to be things where folks didn't get what they want. But ultimately, I think it's important for us to do what Minnesotans expect us to do. Represent the issues they care about. And I think today and through the last few days, we really, came to a place where all of us kind of set aside some of our differences, and certainly some of our priorities, to come together. And I think we'll put a budget together that we can finish on time. And frankly, we think the governor will be with us in signing that. So,
let me just I've got a couple of principles of negotiations like this, I guess. One of them is you always like the outcome to be something where people get what they need. Maybe not what they want, but people get what they need. And I think our discussions have led to that. And sometimes the best negotiations are when everyone walks away from the table grumbling a little bit. No one walks away angry, but everybody grumbling a little bit that, gee, I didn't quite get everything that I wanted. And I think that's probably where this is going to conclude. Everyone's going to kind of get what's needed for the state over the next 2 years. And the surplus created a situation where the wants were pretty high and expectations got pretty high. So I think we did our best to try to work within the resources that we had, and I think the outcome's going to be a pretty good budget.
Bonding bill? Bonding bill?
It sounds like we probably, if we have a bonding bill, it will be an absolute bare bones minimum capital, maybe some flood relief, very small if we do one.
Was there ever a point in the negotiations where you didn't think you were going to get done on time? Like where you didn't think you were going to come to a deal?
No. That's my answer. I don't know what his is.
No, I think I always thought we could get done. I was getting more and more anxious. That's because everything's not within our control. That's why this morning at 8 o'clock we met with the revisers first thing to find out what kind of time they needed, because that's outside of our control. Can they get the conference committee, work of the conference committee turned around and back to us so that we can get it on the floor in time? We clearly, to get this done, are going to have cooperation from the minorities in both bodies in order to get done. And so that's going to be, my next call is probably going to be to Senator Han, asking for his support as we get these bills to the floor and try to get the floor sessions done in a timely way.
Say a word about the closed-door nature of this process of the last 5 days. How do you justify this much lack of transparency for Minnesotans as you made these decisions?
Well, it was several days ago. It was after some kind of, I describe it as dueling press conferences where some of the rhetoric got a little hot. The governor got kind of upset about that and suggested we put what's commonly referred to as a cone of silence over the discussions. I've been through that before. This isn't that uncommon when you get down to the final nuts and bolts of putting the budget deal together. I think probably in most years this has happened. What's been so different about this year is it's been difficult for the press corps, because normally these conversations happen in the in the governor's reception room, and there's no way out of there without dealing with the press corps. And so this is just such a different environment because of the Capitol renovations. I think the process wasn't much different than in previous budget discussions. I think it was logistics that made it appear a lot different, and we appreciate the patience that you all have had as we try to negotiate this thing away from the Capitol, away from the floor sessions, and it's been a difficult process for all of us.
I'll add too to that one. You know, the pieces of this agreement as they come together are really in all of our bills, either on the House or Senate side. I don't know that there's really anything that's coming forward that's not there. So obviously, as we work through the conference committee process, you know, folks will see that. But these bills have gone through months of hearings and public vetting. So obviously, the public has been exposed to what's in these bills and ultimately what will be in this agreement.
Speaker, you said that everybody had to set aside priorities. What priorities did you set aside?
Well, obviously once we have a final agreement, we've seen all the numbers and, you know, all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. You know, obviously that will be probably, you know, you'll be able to see where those are.
If you're not able to get to transportation and taxes yet before Monday's adjournment, does it wait by default till next year, or is there talk of doing something in the interim?
I think the state constitution says that the legislature has to meet in the city of St. Paul. And starting on Tuesday, I understand the Department of Administration is going to start taking the ventilating equipment out of the Capitol and start removing the desks from the House chamber. So on Tuesday, the voting boards will no longer work. So I think it would be a little difficult for us to find a place to meet for a special session for something that's not a must-pass bill. Now, clearly, if some kind of a disaster happens somewhere in Minnesota and the state needs to respond, we're going to find a way to meet in a gymnasium somewhere here in St. Paul or at the Armory or someplace. But barring some kind of a disaster, I don't expect that there will be a session until, at a very minimum, until the new office building is opened where we have some chamber capacity in December.
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, it sounds like a budget that is much bigger than your caucus wants, and you're not getting any tax cuts. So can you say where your win is?
You know, I think the level of spending, I think folks will see that. You know, we obviously prioritized this nursing home reimbursement reform and the funding that's associated with that. I think there's some wins in the K-12 area. You know, I think as you see the bills kind of unfold in conference committee, there's going to be wins for all of us in different places, and ultimately I think, you know, the caucus will be supportive of where we're at.
Are you confident that your caucus can pass these budget bills off the floor, or are you going to need minority vote?
No, I'm confident we can get it done.
Are you able to say what the total spending level is that you've agreed upon?
I don't think we have a number.
I don't think we have it yet. Yeah.
I'm not sure we kept that math as we tried to negotiate all the individual targets. Thank you all.
Coming back here later tonight?
No, I believe we're going to be either at the Capitol or the State Office building trying to meet with the chairs of the respective conference committees.
Do you have a timeline when you think you'll be getting information out, the spreadsheets that you were talking about earlier?
Probably sometime later tonight.
You're talking about really late?
Well, actually, we probably should brief our caucuses first, so probably not till sometime early tomorrow morning. They get a little upset when they read it in the newspaper.
We'll notify the chairs tonight of the as long as we get to a place where we're in agreement, we'll notify the chairs tonight of the conference committees of the joint targets, and then we'll talk to our caucuses. Likely that'll happen early tomorrow.
When do we see these numbers?
Tomorrow morning.
You guys said you're as close as you could possibly be having an agreement without having an agreement. Anything could be around this, or what?
Math. I mean, if the calculators work as well at the state office building in the Capitol as they worked in the room here, I think there's a deal. But you know, numbers get transposed sometimes. Lots of things can go wrong when you're working with a lot of numbers and a lot of big numbers. So barring something unforeseen, I think we're going to actually shake hands on a deal tonight.
But you've agreed to the fundamentals.
Yes.
What's the win in education for the House?
You'll see it in conference committee.
When do the education HHS conference committees have to finish their work in order to get this to the reviser on time?
That bill's not, the path isn't quite as critical for E12. It's the HHS bill, 470 pages. That's the very critical path in the reviser's office. So that's the one that we really need to get hustling on, like, immediately.
Right.
And conference committees are going to start tonight or early tomorrow?
If they're recessed, they'll start tonight.
Yeah.
If I suspect most of them probably will. Some of them have been meeting and have gone through some of their work, so for some of them it won't be as big a task as for others.